Hi, my name is Bob Erickson. I'll be teaching this class, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. Just to give you a little bit of background, here's a picture of my mom and dad after they had gotten married. Um, my dad actually only made it to high school for about a month before he dropped out, and then eventually he met my mom, and of course they got married, and she dropped out of high school. So for me, in my family, the only educational expectations were actually to graduate from high school. So college was never something in my future as a kid. In fact, my dad, he was basically a crane operator, and that's him on the left. And he grew up on the Jersey Shore, so he spent all his time building docks and bulkheads and things like that. An interesting thing about that was he spent most of his whole life on the water, and he never actually knew how to swim. I understand he fell in once, but luckily he was able to get out of the water before he drowned. So I'm one of five. I'm the handsome one on the right there with the really blonde hair, back when I had hair. And of course, as a kid growing up, probably one of the biggest things I did was I read the book called The Tracker, the story of Tom Brown Jr. And that sent me actually to the Tracker School, where I took his standard tracking nature and wilderness survival course way back. And then I actually read the search and went to his advanced class. And an interesting fact about the search is I was standing next to the person who took the photo for that hardcover book. And I'm one of the people standing around the campfire inside that book, though you'll never be able to recognize me, but I'd be more than happy to point it out to you. Of course, I built my own little lean-to out in the forest, and this is a spot I went to every single day, and it doesn't look exactly like that anymore because once I moved away, I actually tore down my lean-to and scattered everything around so you couldn't see it. But I was basically loved the outdoors, and that's all I ever did. Me and my friend Tim, we hiked the Batona Trail in the Pine Barrens, which was my first hiking trip. And then this picture here is me and Tim. We were hiking on the New Jersey section of the Long Trail. Eventually, I would wind up hiking the entire Long Trail here in Vermont in the summer of '93. And then in '94, I went and did a bunch of hiking up in Alaska, which was a blast. In 1980, after I had graduated from high school, I moved up to Vermont with my family and spent all of my time hiking up in the Liebrook Wilderness area. And this here's a picture of Liebrook Falls. I also had lots of hair back then. However, Vermont is a great place to run around in the woods. It wasn't great at finding a job and being a flatlander living in a small town in Vermont. However, I did enjoy going hunting, fishing, and trapping all the time. And I still enjoy those pursuits today, though I don't do them nearly as much as I used to. What happened is at the Lions Club fair they had one year in Manchester, my mom won the door prize, which was a free class at the Ethan Allen Community College, where I took my first computer class. It was just an introduction to computers, but I loved it. I mean, I was pretty much bored at work. I think I was working several different jobs. At the time, I had worked for the Alpine Slide Company, so if you've ever gone down a mountain on an Alpine slide, I used to make those. Then I worked in grocery stores and things like that, so it was pretty boring. But I really loved that class, and here I am going to my first computer class. I don't know if that book was for the class or not. That I don't remember. But after I completed that first class, which was just a basic intro to computer class, I took a programming course, which I really loved. And so that was the one that led me on to my college career, where my sister was attending college, and she said, well, I should go as well. So I applied to Castleton State College, and eventually I received my degree in Management Information Systems back in 1987. What's kind of funny is I never actually looked for a job in Burlington, Vermont, because I actually thought Burlington, Vermont was way too big of a city. Why I actually accepted a job down at Mass Mutual Life Insurance in Springfield, Massachusetts is beyond me. But I did, and of course, that didn't work out. And eventually, working at grocery stores again and all sorts of different jobs. I worked at Grampy's Corner Store in Stratton, if you're familiar with that area. I worked for the Sirloin Saloon as well as a dishwasher. Fun, fun, fun. I did get a job with a mail order company, Hills Court here, and I really liked that, and I was doing some computer work there, but they went out of business and closed their doors, which was a pretty tough time for me because I I was kind of stuck. There were hardly any jobs at that time, and I was pretty much unemployed once again. But Castleton had a 4+1 program, and so I went to Clarkson University to work on my master's degree. And don't be fooled, it might be 4+1, but it's more like 1.5 to 2 years. I did manage to finish in 1 year, but I really started the summer before, so it was the 1.5. But very tough to do an accelerated program. I don't recommend it. I recommend taking your time and do the 2-year program. But now that I was equipped with a master's degree, I sent out over 100 different resumes and finally landed a job at the University of Vermont in 1991, but only part-time. However, after that first year that I worked here part-time, they hired me on full-time in fall of 1992. So working at UVM has been great in a lot of ways. It's led me on many new adventures. One of them, which is I get to go hunting. I did go hunting out of state before I got married. Another one was to explore some of the higher mountains up north here, because I was down in southern Vermont, and so I enjoyed climbing up Camel's Hump and Mount Mansfield. In fact, I used to do those constantly. That was one of my favorite hikes. I also met my wife here at UVM. She's a researcher over in the medical school. We got married about a little over a year after we met. And now I tend to actually hike smaller mountains with my kids and my family, though I'm hoping to eventually hike the long trail again with my daughters if they're interested. And my oldest daughter has got an interest, but we haven't done it yet. This is Little Mountain, Snake Mountain, which isn't too far here from Burlington, so if you're ever interested in a great hike, I'd recommend it. So that's kind of a little short story of how I got here at UVM, where I teach my classes, and doing what I love the most is helping you learn about computers. And though at times it may be a very rough road, I'm hoping in the end you enjoy it and you like it, though not everybody's always excited about computers as I am.